my performance in competition just skyrocketed. I went from not making finals in competitions to consistent, like made every single final in a competition. So that's like top 16. And I would qualify pretty high too. I usually qualify around the top 10. And I still wasn't even competing my best. Like I was competing really well, and I still like had so much more room to grow. And I ended up having my best season ever. And now is the year to finally answer your question. Like, when did I feel like I was a professional skier? It was that year when I knew, like, I finally got into the gate at competitions, and I was like, yes, like, I know I can win this competition if I perform my best. I know I can.
Welcome back, Schmoozers. Thank you for listening to this week's episode. I'm David Cobby, and today you are about to hear from a recent college grad who has already molded his personal brand into something quite special. He's a former professional skier, he's an incoming employee at Meta, and has also done some amazing work with Jewish groups such as TAMID. In addition to all this individual has participated in a 10-day silent retreat, which personally I think is amazing considering all the yapping that people do nowadays. Please welcome to my show, Spencer Belsky. Spencer, what is going on, man? How are we doing today?
I'm doing great, David. Thank you for this very, very flattering introduction.
So Spencer and I have been literally playing, let's call it like interview tag, where Spencer's canceled on me 3 times, and I finally get him on the show now. So I'm hyped to get him on, like, and just talk to him about his personal brand, because quite frankly, this guy is absolutely amazing. Professional skier, incoming employee at Meta, like, this guy's amazing. So really excited to have you on the show.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Thanks, David.
How's life been since you graduated college?
That's actually, ironically enough, it's not very different at all, because I may have graduated and I walked into the thing, but I actually had 2 more summer classes to finish. So at Northeastern, when you graduate, you actually get to go to Fenway Park, and they like bring you down there and they have this big ceremony. And I'm like sitting down there and I'm getting notifications on my phone saying like, oh, like, here's your assignments for this week. Like, this is what you have to do. And I'm like, could they have waited 1 day? Like, this is like really like not planned for at all. Those classes, they're much easier than the classes I've had to take in the past. So really, my post, like, half graduation life has been really nice, actually. Just kind of hanging out, doing a lot of reading, going to the gym, and spending time with friends as I'm wrapping up my time in Boston. So it's been good.
I love it, man. So we're just going to hop right into your Jewish geography profile, because I don't want you to say too much about it. You said a good amount about yourself right there, but we're going to talk about your Jewish geography profile and just kind of like, it's a way to introduce you to everybody. Are you ready for the Jewish geography profile questions?
Can't wait.
All right. So Spencer, where are you from originally? What's your hometown?
I'm from a town called Mahopac, New York, which is in Putnam County. But to anybody who doesn't know what Putnam County is, I say Westchester, and that usually gets the point across.
Okay. So how are you like actually in Westchester, or you're like just outside of Westchester?
I'm like a 5-minute drive from the border. So I identify as a Jew from Westchester, but I'm actually not. And when somebody's like, oh, where in Westchester are you from? I'm like, well, here's my confession.
I like where, so you already mentioned you went to Northeastern. What was your major?
Yeah, so for my undergrad, I studied information technology. And then my master's, which I just finished up, I studied computer science.
So I know when we were on the phone or a couple, I don't even know how long it was at this point, a couple months ago, you're mentioning like you had like a ski group when you were younger, because we'll get into your professional skiing career. But I want to ask you, like, what was that like ski group like? Because I was talking to you and I said, did you do any youth groups when you were younger? And you said, no, I did a ski group. So I want to ask you, what was that ski group? What was that ski group? And what was that like in terms of like your social scene as a kid?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's actually like, we could talk about this for a while, so I'll try and keep it as concise as possible. Like I had a few different ski groups, I would say, growing up with. And really it was like like you said, like I didn't belong to like a youth group, like any of the Jewish ones going to school. Like most of the time I was just doing school, and then like I'd go home and hang out and wait for the weekend to go ski. My parents would bring me up to go skiing every weekend, originally at Hunter Mountain up until I was 13 or 14, I think until I was 14, and then ended up going to Killington Mountain School in Vermont for high school. But like really up until I was 14, like I would say my youth group was my ski friends. And that would be like the kids I grew up skiing with on the weekends, anyone from the original crew in the freestyle team to just my parents' friends' kids who were my friends. So it was like all of our parents were friends and all of the kids were friends. And we happened to just be around the same age. So we just had a really good time growing up, and it was awesome.
Love that. Love that. And would you say like, were you guys amongst like your ski friend group? Were you guys like, very competitive with each other? Like, would you guys try and like beat each other in like time trials down the mountain, or would you say it was kind of like a more chill, relaxed kind of vibe, than like a competitive kind of spirit?
Yeah, so I would say it was very competitive, and I didn't really become a competitive person until more recently, I would say, like really started channeling that. And more recently is like the past 5 years. So when I was, for instance, skiing, I was just naturally talented, and that was enough for me. I didn't have to be competitive. But then especially when I went up to high school in Vermont, there was a lot of really competitive energy there. But that didn't mean we weren't friends. And it was really like a beautiful thing we had. And like on the best teams, we talk about this a lot. Like the best teams, not only are you all really close friends, but you also really push each other. It's like, yeah, like we're like, I'm trying to beat these guys because I want to win. But I also know if I try and beat them and they try and beat me, we will become the best skiers we can possibly be. So we just end up kind of creating this effect where we're all pushing each other to be the best we can be. And it hasn't even stopped in skiing too. Like this is extended to our careers as well, which has been really fun. But yeah, so like it was friendly, it was fun, but there were certainly tense moments, especially around competition as well.
I'm sure. Before and I don't want to go too much into your skiing career yet because I have a lot of questions, but final question for your Jewish geography profile. How has your Jewish identity changed over the course of your college career?
Yeah, it's a good question. I definitely say for me, college actually really helped me feel more comfortable in my Jewish identity and like really just embrace it and be like, yeah, this is who I am. Mostly because growing up, even in high school and on my ski teams, was never really around many other Jews. Like always a few, but for the most part, I was kind of just like the token Jew. And I was like, okay, like that's fine. And that was just my entire life. But then when I came to school and I was like, okay, like, yeah, I did some stuff with Hillel Chabad, but I was also in AEPI. I was in TAMID, which isn't technically Jewish, but there were enough Jews there for me to feel it. And I was really like, oh, wow, like I'm actually with my people. And it was really nice just being able to connect over Judaism in addition to all the other things that we were doing. And then once I started getting more and more comfortable there, I was like, wait, this is actually way better than what I was doing before when I was just like being the token Jew and like, I don't have a Jew. And I still am in some of my groups, but now like I'm much more of a, I guess like I'm a proud token Jew now instead of you be more of a closeted token Jew.
So let's move on to your skiing career. I know we kind of touched on it a little bit just now, but I want to talk about, what like how you knew or when you knew that you had the it factor to become a professional skier. I mean, listen, like to say your skiing career was good is a complete understatement considering, you're an Eastern regional champion, MVP. You have represented the US at several international events. So I'm just wondering, what point in your skiing career, right? I know you mentioned like started skiing at a young age. What point in your skiing career did you know that you had the it factor, you had the drive and you had the talent to, represent the United States at all these international events and be proclaimed a professional skier?
And I don't think there was never like one moment. Like it's not, I don't think any people who are excel in sports or in business or in anything, like have one moment where like, oh yeah, this is it. It's just kind of a byproduct of trusting the process. And for me, it was actually like, I didn't really believe it until really towards like the last 2 or 3 years of my career, where I like really felt it, and then the results showed for it. But I mentioned it earlier, like when I was growing up skiing at Hunter, like there was a weekend one competition a year there. It was like the B competition, the youngest, earliest level. And my parents would just always enter me in it. And I started doing this thing, I think when I was 8 years old. And I always won my age category because there was only like 2 or 3 other kids. But I would still beat them. I was like, oh yeah, I'm the best, I'm the champion. And we kept doing that competition and then a few other ones until when I was 13. I finally started winning them at that lower level, that B level. And then it's like, oh, like, where do we go from here? Well, we go to the A level. So that's kind of like going from AA to AAA. When I moved up that league, I got totally kicked in the teeth. It was like, wow, like, this sucks. Like going from like winning competitions to barely making it down a course because it was way harder sucks. And then I was like, all right, like this is something I love and something I want to do more. I just want to work really hard. And that's when I started flirting with the idea of going to Killington Mountain School, really taking my ski career to the next level. And that's what happened after a lot of convincing and some academic bargaining with my parents to actually try and apply myself in school. I ended up getting the opportunity to go to Killington Mountain School. From there, it was like, all right, I'm in the same league, but now I'm training. Like instead of just the weekends, now I was skiing midweek, going to the gym and like being on this team of a lot of really, really talented skiers who also worked really hard. And that year, it was like night and day. So I started doing really well. I made junior nationals for the first time. That's 2015, by the way. So I'm 15. Put some time steps in there. I made junior nationals for the first time. I think I got most improved on the East Coast. So it was big. And then it just kind of kept going from there. The next year I made nationals. I had like some really big breakthroughs with my skiing. And then the next year I kind of plateaued. So it was my final year of high school. And I was like, okay, what do I do from here? I got into Northeastern and I was definitely always going to take a gap year, but it's like, where do I spend my gap year? Do I spend it in Vermont or do I go to Steamboat? And then the decision was kind of made for me where for other reasons, like I just ended up going to Steamboat Springs, Colorado, and not necessarily staying in Vermont. I felt and my family felt and coaches also felt it was probably good for me to go and see something new. And if I was going to do a gap year and really go for it, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to go and change programs and to at least live a year in Colorado. Like who could, like, woe is me. That's an amazing opportunity. So I went there and that even kicked my training up another gear. That was like, okay, I was living the life of a professional athlete. My day revolved around training. I was in the most competitive environment I'd ever been in. And I really, really struggled. Like it was really hard for me. I was lonely. And while like I was seeing some gains in my skiing and in my athleticism, I was not in competition. Like that was the worst I'd ever competed. Just I would get in the gate and I would be so in my own head about having to compete, I would mess up. So like I got very few good results that year. At the end of that year, that was 2018, I had to make the decision, all right, am I going to keep skiing or go to school? And that was, I guess, a big moment where it was like, all right, this is like to take a second gap year really changes the trajectory of my college career. I would have to go start taking classes online and not go in person like the normal way through Northeastern. I would have to really commit myself to skiing. And that's what I decided to do just because I wasn't satisfied with how I performed. And I knew I was capable of more. So I did that for another year. And it was kind of the same thing, bro. It was like, wow, okay, like I competed better, but not nearly good enough to what I could have done. Like not for what my skiing was at, not for how badly I wanted it. So after that year, 2019, we decided, all right, maybe I'll go back to Vermont, actually go back to Killington Mountain School, rejoin the team there. Some people had moved on already. I would definitely be one of the oldest guys on the team, but there was some of that remnants and that energy was still there where it could work. And then that year, like I left Steamboat in August and I started in Killington in September. And it was like, I don't know exactly what it was that changed. It was definitely like a mindset. It was definitely being back home made me feel better. But my performance in competition just skyrocketed. I went from not making finals in competitions to consistent, like made every single final in a competition. So that's like top 16. And I would qualify pretty high too. I'd usually qualify around the top 10. and I still wasn't even competing my best. Like I was competing really well, and I still like had so much more room to grow. And I ended up having my best season ever. And that was the year, to finally answer your question. Like, when did I feel like I was a professional skier? It was that year when I knew, like, I finally got into the gate at competitions, and I was like, yes, like, I know I can win this competition if I perform my best. I know I can. Versus like all those other years before, it was like, here we go, another run. Like then it was like, okay, after all these years of struggle, I know I'm finally good enough. I finally believe in myself, and I can beat those other guys. They're not better than me, or they're not that much better than me.
Mm. I love hearing how athletes like train, stay mentally healthy. Like I recently had a professional biker on my podcast, and he kind of talked about a similar thing where you have to not only be in good physical shape, but the mental part of it, like you mentioned, like you were so in your head, like clearly you're good enough, you're a fantastic skier, you're winning all these events, you have this skill, you have the talent. It's just like there are some times where like you just get in your head and you don't perform well, and it amazes me how like we even see this with professional athletes in some of like the big four leagues, MLB, NBA, NFL and NHL. Like we see this with them too, right? Like you can tell when a person or an athlete is like so distressed, and like you could tell like on their face and on their body language, and it's just like it's so mental health. It as a whole is very important, but especially when it comes to like competing in these events, extremely important. So what would you do, in an instance where like, you mentioned you're at the gate, I can imagine your heart's racing at 1,000,000 miles an hour, you're probably shaking. How do you calm yourself down in that scenario? And you're just like, you say to yourself, like, Spencer, like, I'm about to go kill this race. Like, I'm going to win. I'm better than these guys. Like, what do you do to like, in that moment, what do you say to yourself to like calm yourself down?
Yeah. So when I was competing very poorly, I would actually like do a lot. Like I would
Mm-hmm.
always actually be like, oh yeah, like psych myself up, be like, yeah, I'm gonna go get it, like do all these things, like basically like fidget in the gate. I found actually I started competing so much better when I did nothing. Like I would get to the top of the course and I would stand there. I would try and not listen to any of my competitors. Like if you could hear the scores, this isn't always the case, but if you could hear the scores, I would try and not listen to them at all. And I would literally just like basically meditate standing up there. Basically say, all right, like just keep the heart rate low, keep it as low as possible, and just chill out. If somebody comes to talk to me, like be really polite, and like basically politely tell them to go away. And then just do my warm up around like 20 skiers out, and then just be ready. And then by the time I get into the gate, just be like, all right, like just breathe and just go.
I like that. I like that. So what would you say? Obviously you learned a lot about, failing, struggling, learning how to calm yourself down, being competitive, a lot of these things. What would you say like the biggest like skill you learned? What was the biggest skill that you learned from your skiing career, and how is that like kind of translated over to succeeding in school and succeeding in your professional career?
Really good question. And I don't know if it's like a skill, but I would break it down into two answers. And basically, I would say it's the power of preparation, being prepared for things. And also, it's kind of like half self-belief, half competitiveness. Like for a while, I was kind of just like going through life and being like, oh, like look at all these people getting those opportunities. And I wanted them. Like I tried to get them, but it's like, did I really like put in the effort I was capable of? And that kind of goes hand in hand with preparation. And it's like, okay, like if you really want something, and I thought about a lot, like how hard I tried for things at skiing. And then like what I did when I was finally starting to compete well, it's like, whether you want it, look at it this way or not, like life is a competition. Anything from like social media branding to like getting into schools, getting into clubs, getting societies, whatever. It is a competition. And if you want something bad enough, you will do everything in your power to make that happen. And then more often than not, you need to be lucky. So I'm a big believer in like creating your own luck and just working really hard. And kind of trying to be radically honest with yourself, being like, okay, I'm trying really hard. Is like the thing I'm doing correct? Like, 'cause you can try really hard, but if you're not trying the right thing, it's not going to work. So just kind of like always checking yourself, and that's something I'm trying to get better at. Because like I don't know if I do the right things. I know I do a lot of things, but like, are these the right things? Like nobody's whispering in my ear. Like, just kind of got to figure it out.
Right. And that's what I love about doing interviews like this is everybody talks about like clearly there's everybody's successful in their own ways. And there's no really, I guess, like right way to prepare, right? It's just you have to be prepared for, jobs, skiing competition, school, all these things, but there's no correct way to prepare. And you're saying how you would prepare for your skiing competition by doing nothing, right? You mentioned before how you would try to do a million things, whatever, but then when you started doing nothing, you were still able to prepare in the correct way. And it's kind of like an oxymoron because it's like you're saying you're doing nothing to prepare. So it's just very interesting to hear how, somebody like you who has a professional skiing career, who now will be working at Meta, which is like one of the most competitive companies to get an interview for. And it's just like, but your preparation style and your intensity is just like so different from everybody else, yet you're still very successful.
Yeah. And it's, I had a coach, Glenn, he would always say this, like, there's multiple ways to skin a cat, which was like this really weird way of saying that there's so many different ways to get the same exact output. You just have to figure out what works for you. And so far, this is working for me well, but I'm certainly not satisfied. And if and when I find better ways, I will use them.
Mm-hmm. So I want to take a step back from your skiing career and kind of talk about something more, I guess, leisurely, aka travel. I know you mentioned to me that you're going to be doing a really big trip this year where you're going to Vegas and Israel. And you actually were in Israel on TAMID, I believe the year was, what year? It was 2022, summer of 2022?
That's right.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you're in Israel, summer of 2022, which I think was the year I was there also. So I'm sure ran into each other at, something and just didn't know each other. But I want to ask you about your experience with TAMID, which is, I think is an incredible program. Considering, it's very consulting based and, you're from a, more of a computer science background, not necessarily the business background. But I just want to ask you about, having an internship in Israel and balancing, like, let's be real here, the party life there, right? I had to do the same thing. I had an internship. I had to go in the office hungover a few times. Like, it's fine. Like, it
Only
happens,
a few.
but only a few. I mean, maybe more than a few. I mean, if a few is like 10, 20, sure. But
Yeah.
anyways, I want to ask you, like, how was your experience in Israel having an internship that was, I would imagine, pretty serious and hardcore, and then like trying to enjoy your life in Israel and experience it and, just enjoy the atmosphere there?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And honestly, it's like really, really challenging. And there were a lot of moments in that summer where I was like, what the hell am I doing right now? Like, where it's like, it's 4 a.m. and I'm like, I don't know where. And I'm supposed to go to work the next day versus like, like sometimes I just take a night in. It's like literally the same thing. It's like, I would say there's probably just like perpetual state of FOMO for 2 months. And it's not like to say like I didn't enjoy any of it. Like I was always in FOMO. It's just like when you're on one of these programs, it's always like, wow, there is always something to do. And yeah, like that, it's hard. It's really draining. But for the most part, like I really did enjoy my summer there. I still keep in touch with so many of my friends that I made on that trip, a lot of my roommates, a lot of other people from the program. And it really is just like, that was awesome. Like just kind of being able to live there for the summer in Florentine and Tel Aviv. It was really cool. I would say that one thing that was really challenging about my job was actually I had a commute. I had a pretty big commute. I didn't know it was going to be an hour there and back. But yeah, I had to take a bus any day I went in. And fortunately, like it was hybrid. So I only went to the office 2 or 3 days a week once we really got going. But it was like, yeah, like I had to take a serious commute. So then like a lot of times it would be like I just get off the bus, go home, change, and then like find out like where people are going. Yeah. Did a lot of surfing on the trip as well, and like creating like a little bit of a surf school on like some midweek days and some weekend days, which was really fun. But yeah, it's like there's not enough time to talk about like each and every little thing. It's just really fun, really grateful for it. And yeah.
The Israel summer, my 2022 Israel summer will go down as the best summer ever. I know I said this like segment was about travel, so I do want to ask you a little bit about travel outside of Israel. It's very easy to have a 5-hour conversation about Israel and everything that goes on there. What are some other really cool places that you've traveled to that have, been pretty memorable for you? Because I know, again, you're taking this big trip this summer, and I'm just curious, like what other places have you been to and have, a good memory of and have made like, I guess, like a profound impact on your life?
I think the first one that comes to mind is Switzerland. I've had the ability to go to Switzerland 3 times now, each time pretty much for a month, and just so incredible. My first 2 times there, I was there training for skiing. So I was there for a month with my teams, and it's just like, we're in Zermatt. And so like with Zermatt, that's where the Matterhorn is. You can go, you wake up and on a clear day, you see the Matterhorn. And we're like all like lining up for the tram lines, getting ready to battle it out, to get on the early tram. You just look up and the Matterhorn's right there. And it's just such a cool feeling. It's high in altitude. So just knowing you have that mountain energy and the way that valley, the canyon works, where the whole village is just like right at the bottom, like right up against each of the sides of the mountains. It's like just one of the coolest places. You can go to Switzerland and never get bored. Never. It's just not possible.
I want to talk about your 10-day silent retreat. So you're a college age student, right? You just graduated, but you're good. You just graduated, but you're taking summer classes. So you just graduated in my eyes. And you decide to do a silent retreat for 10 days. And first thing that comes to mind for me is like why? Like, what made you want to do the silent retreat? Like, was there someone that kind of like prompted you to do it? Or were you just kind of like, all right, listen, I want to do this. I want to try this out, be different. Like what really went into the thought process of you saying, yeah, I want to shut my mouth for 10 days?
So I first heard about this thing called Vipassana meditation, actually when I was in Israel. And one of my roommates on the fellowship, Lucas, he told me about this retreat. He said it was 10 days of silent meditation. I'd never heard of it before. He hadn't done it yet either. He just heard about it as well. So I kind of just like made a mental note and put it in my pocket. And then flash forward actually about another month, and I'm in Switzerland now. When I met a bunch of really amazing people in Switzerland. And one of the guys, Landon, he had completed one of these retreats. And he just had this energy about him where it was really calm. And I was like, wow, like, how was it? And he was just like life-changing. Like, you have to go do it if you can. I was like, okay, like kind of just like made a mental note and put it in my pocket. And nothing much really happened from there. I just like heard about it, knew about it. And as they like to say, now I like to say, like, you don't find Vipassana finds you. And it's just like, it comes to you when you're ready for it. And I firmly believe it, having done it and being an active meditator now. So I didn't really make much of it, and a couple months go by. So this is now in May of 2023, right around a year ago this time. We're like April, May. And I was just kind of like trying to take stock of my life. Like I was 23 years old at the time and finishing my undergrad, getting ready for my master's. I had an awesome internship lined up. I had a lot of support from my friends and family. I was in a great relationship at the time. And yet I was just like really almost like empty. Like I could go and like live my life and be fine, but like I did not feel good. And I could not figure out why I didn't feel good. I had tried therapy, and maybe with the right therapist, I would have been able to figure that out. And then tried a lot of other things, like long periods of sobriety, like reading self-help books, and I just like wasn't feeling good. And it wasn't like, not to get dark, like I was having suicidal thoughts. I just like wasn't feeling good, and it wasn't getting better. It seemed to me like it was getting worse, but like we were talking a bit about mental health before, like I just wasn't feeling good. And sometimes people just get in these ruts, even if it seems like they have everything. So like you can have everything and be really unhappy. And that's what it felt like I was. And I was like, you know what? Like I have 2 months off after I graduate before I start work. Like I need to try this retreat out. And at the worst case, it's a 10-day dopamine detox. And I guess like an even worse case, I join a cult because it sounds super culty. And that's a big disclaimer, is it sounds super culty. And I had a lot of trouble convincing like my mom that I wasn't running off and joining a cult, because she was definitely convinced I was. And I wasn't convinced I wasn't either. So there was like a lot of healthy skepticism there. But yeah, so I was just like, wasn't feeling good. So I'm like, you know what, let's try it. 10 days. Like what's the worst that could happen? And I went, and for 10 days, it's silent meditation. And in this process of learning Vipassana, I was really just like able to see just like how the mind is able to distort itself, because you're breathing and body scanning. And I don't want to spoil too much, because you're really not supposed to. If you want to learn more about it, go look it up. There's a lot of resources on the internet. But Vipassana translates to seeing reality the way it is. And what you learn is that like the way we think, the way we act, the way we react is really just habit. Like all the things, like if something happens in life, we're just reacting, and we can get really emotional and attach a lot of emotion to these reactions. So if you're able to basically say, wait a second, like this thing happened, I'm not going to react to it. I'm just going to observe it. And you learn to do that through Vipassana, you practice it, then you're able to see it for what it is and not like this wound up emotional thing. And it's a lot of work, and it's really painful, not physically painful, like emotionally painful. You're like, oh my gosh, like I didn't realize this about myself. Like, wow, I need to dig deeper here. And over the course of 10 days, it was like, I was not healed, but I had the tool to finally like continue this work on my own. And I felt so much better after having done those 10 days, like really like liberated in a sense from a lot of, not necessarily like all of my pain, but I knew that it was on its way out, just because now I had this tool that made me feel so much better.
I just want to say, first of all, like as a 22-year-old male, I know how hard it is to like open up and be vulnerable about shit. So like I appreciate you just, talking about your own mental health struggles. And I've struggled with mental health before. I can't say like I know what it's like, because everybody has their own situation, but I just think like, opening up about mental health is a very hard thing. And I appreciate you doing that, on here and being open to talk about it. And I don't know, from hearing about, this silent retreat, I think one of the biggest takeaways that I think you were talking about is the ability to do that can be helpful for so many situations, right? Like earlier we were talking about, your skiing career and how you're getting nervous, right? I can only imagine, right? If you were to ski today and you were to get nervous, you'd do that same kind of technique you learned in the silent retreat, where you'd find yourself, you'd be like, okay, like I have a lot of emotion pent up right now, because like I care about my skiing career and I care about doing well, and you know how to deal with it. So I can only imagine, like, if you were to continue with your skiing career on and on, I'm sure that would be like extremely helpful. And I could only imagine it will be very helpful for like the next steps of your career when you're at Meta, when, whatever you do after that. Like I can only imagine like that silent retreat is probably, correct me if I'm wrong, life-changing to just like your mental state and well-being, right?
Oh yeah. Like there's like my life before doing that and my life after, for sure.
That's awesome. That's all. So I know we just talked a lot about being silent and, being able to like cope with your thoughts and, being, I guess you could say humble in a way about yourself, but I want you to brag about yourself for a second. Okay. So you're going to be working at Meta. And again, like I mentioned earlier, it is probably one of the most competitive companies that you have to interview for. And I'm just curious, like, again, please brag about yourself here. Like, I genuinely want to know, what were the steps leading up to like getting that job with Meta? And why are you, Spencer, the best fit to be a product manager at Meta out of any other candidate?
Mm. Well, you gave me permission to brag, but I didn't need it.
Please do. Please brag.
So I guess like, why am I the best fit? Well, maybe it's easier to answer like how I ended up at the role, because
Sure.
it is like, there is less than 1% of people get it, maybe even less. Like I don't know the statistic off the top of my head, but really this story kind of starts again like in the past, where it's like I didn't just wake up and apply and get it. It's like, no, in fall of 2022, so after my internship in Israel, I was applying for these for product management roles. I just decided this was something I wanted to do based off my previous experiences, and I applied for a few, and I got an internship or interview at Google, and I was like, oh great, like I'm gonna ace this thing, gonna get it, piece of cake. And I did like 2 or 3 mock interviews, and I get into the interview and I bombed it, and it was awful. I was like, wow, like that wasn't supposed to happen. I thought it was going to be like a cakewalk for me. And as it turns out, like getting internships and interviews is really hard. And the fact that I had my first one with Google, like, you know, call it, say for what it was, good luck, bad luck, whatever. But it sucked. And I realized like, okay, I suck at interviewing and I need to be way, way better. So I start just grinding interviews, grinding interview prep. And I end up getting an internship at Bevy, which is, it was really a co-op through Northeastern's co-op program, but I call it an internship for people who don't know. And that certainly helped me get the role at Meta, because Bevy, like there's actually Bevy machines, those are water dispensers. They're in Meta offices. So there's actually been recognizability there. But I also did product management at Bevy for 6 months. And that gave me a lot of really good experience to help buff my resume to get that role. I was also doing a lot of other extracurriculars through TAMID, through other initiatives I'm a part of on campus. So I was really just building out my resume, basically saying, I can do this at Meta for sure, give me a chance. And just itemizing them. I mean, resume building is a totally different thing, but you know, you need something to write about on your resume that's relevant to what you're applying for. So that whole summer I was at Bevy, really starting in May. So after the Vipassana retreat, I like had this clarity and I was like, okay. So this is this time last year, actually. I was like, okay, I have this internship coming up at Bevy. The end goal is a full-time job. There is zero guarantee I get a full-time offer from Bevy. So I need to act as if I'm not getting it and prepare to be the best possible candidate I can be. And I really just channeled from skiing my competitiveness. It was like, the best candidates get the jobs. What's going to make me the best candidate? The best interview, the best resume, the best LinkedIn. Like, I need to be the best person I can be. Not like I can't be the best other person. Like, let's just use what I got and be myself and really just try and figure this out the best way possible. And I could do everything wrong, but at least I'm trying. Last time I didn't try. For Google, I didn't try and I failed. That sucks for different reasons. This time I know, okay, like I'm going to email recruiters. I'm going to connect with alumni. I'm going to connect with people I have no idea who they are. I'm going to connect with my neighbors on the street. Like, I'm just going to chase these connections and try and make something happen. And over the course of the summer, I did all those things, made my resumes. I did probably around 100 mock interviews, just getting ready, because this is Tom Brady quote. I like to think, if you get a shot to be on the field, don't mess it up, because you might not get another one. So I knew, like, if I had one interview with all this, like, I couldn't mess it up. Didn't matter if I didn't get it. I just didn't want to mess it up. And I did all of that. And I applied to Meta like 2 hours after the role opened up, mailed the recruiter. I don't really think that ended up making a difference. And for the RPM program, they don't make referrals, or they don't take referrals. So I didn't have a referral. I applied early. I got an interview, and really I was just like, okay, like, let's just execute. Kind of just like skiing. It's like, all right, like, I would sit in my chair, kind of like this, like, and I did all my interviews in the same spot. I would sit in my chair for like 20 minutes before my interview, just wait, because I didn't want to psych myself out. I was like, nothing's going to change 20 minutes before the interview. I'm just going to wait here until it starts. And I actually didn't even think I ended up getting it after my final round. Like my first round, I thought it was great. Final round, I actually did not think I did very well. So I kind of was just like, all right, whatever. Like, I'll do this other internship I got instead, which was great. And the recruiter calls me up in December, and she's like, hey, like, how'd you think it went? I was like, like, I don't know. Like, I actually didn't think I got it. Like, it's fine. Like, whatever. And then she's like, oh, well, you got it. I was like, wait, I take it back. Like, you didn't hear any of that. Like, it's fine. So yeah, that's that story.
Actually, unbelievable shit right here. Like, I can't even tell you. Like, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like, very competitive person, very serious about interviews, career development, resumes, LinkedIn, all that stuff. But your methodology of like 100 mock interviews is absurd, right? And I'm not saying that as like a negative in a negative way, but like the fact that you had the drive to do 100 freaking interviews to get this one shot at this meta interview is actually unbelievable. So final question for you here, more of a in line with a personal brand question. So a lot of people say a brand, right? In this case, a personal brand is who you are or is what is said about you when you're not in the room, right? For a company, it's, how that's perceived on social media when you're not obviously in front of people that work for the company. For a person, it's like what is said about you when you're not in the room. So let me ask you this, Spencer. Your personal brand, your identity, all very similar things. They're the same thing. People call them different names. But what is like the one thing that you wish for people to say about you when you're not in the room?
That he's the most humble, charming, amazing person ever. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Like that's not something I've really thought about. I guess like the question is like, how do I want to be perceived when I'm not there? And like, that's heavy on it. Everybody wants to be perceived in a positive light. Like, and I don't know how to answer the question where it's not that way. And like what I just said probably is the truth. But if I've done
Right. But I guess if there's one, one quality about you that you think stands out and like makes you like different from other people that you kind of wish that other people would see that in you, like what would that one quality be?
Like I always try and smile, and like sometimes I can't help it. It just is like pieces on my face. And sometimes like I'm not actually happy, but I'll just smile anyways because nobody likes seeing like a mug or a frown. So, and this is something I've actually heard about before. Like I'm kind of always smiling. It's not a bad thing to be known by. Like, and that's not like, I don't mind hanging my hat on that. It's like, regardless of the situation, like if you can kind of just smile through it, like Smile and Wave Boys from Penguins of Madagascar. Like, what? Like I don't know. I can't think of there's not one quality I would choose. Like, I think like a smile probably means a million different things, and most of them are positive. So let's just leave it at that.
I think that's a great answer because usually when I ask that question to people, they'll talk about an actual quality, but you're talking about, or I guess like a more of a mental quality, but you're talking about a physical quality. And I think the importance of smiling goes so far in life. And I can tell you, I've worked the people that like I relate to the most because I'm also kind of like an over smiler. Like I'll smile, just to like show that I'm engaged and that like I have positive body language. Like I'll smile, even though I might be like, whatever. Like I don't really care to like be engaged with this person. But I really think that's a perfectly good answer. I can definitely tell from this interview, like you like to smile a lot, and like it honestly, it makes interviews better. And when people don't smile, when I'm talking to them face to face like this, it's like, oh God, like, what am I doing something wrong? Like, so really, really, it's a very good quality. But all right, Spencer, I want to be mindful of our time. Again, thank you for coming on the podcast. Before I let you go, where can people find you on social media to follow your story?
Thanks. Thanks a lot, David.
Of course.
You can follow me on Instagram at Belsky or on LinkedIn at Spencer Belsky. I think I'm the only Spencer Belsky on LinkedIn, maybe the only one out there. I did think I found another one at some point in time, but I haven't been able to find him since. So yeah, like, reach out to me there. Facebook, I guess. I don't really use Facebook anymore, and don't tell my bosses that, but yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, thank you, Spencer. Make sure, you guys, I mean, Spencer's a great guy. Also, like, he's going to be working on Meta. So for you comp sci people, or anybody else that works and wants to work on Meta, or for anybody that actually wants to learn how to like interview and do all that stuff, like, reach out to Spencer. Also, if you like, you want to dabble in skiing a little bit, he's also a good resource. Spencer's pretty much a good resource for anything. But
it's a good friend for me to plug. I'm a coach on Leland. So if you do want to, if you do want to get interview coaching, for sure.
I love that. Okay, interview coaching from Spencer. Hit him up for that. I know there are a lot of listeners that need to learn how to. I need to learn how to, do an interview correctly. Everybody can improve. So, want to thank Spencer. Make sure, again, we're following the channel, liking, leaving a review if you can. This is how I find more people talk about their personal brand. So really appreciate all the support. Until next time, keep schmoozing.